travel down some muddy tracks and dry. 'Cause if I wanted to get where I was going, I knew I'd just have to walk that country mile. Walking that long mile has shown me changes in the people and the land. But I'll bet the road to Marble Bar's no better than when I drove with trucks and caravans. And the country bloke is still the same old battler, no matter what the place he's working in. And although I've covered many miles, I still can't wait to see what the next long country mile will bring. Well, I've walked a mile or two in my lifetime, and I've traveled down some muddy tracks and dry. 'Cause if I wanted to get where I was going, I knew I'd just have to walk that country mile. Yes, I knew I'd have to walk that country mile. Oh, it's a lonesome away from your kindred and all, by the campfire at night, we'll hear the wild dingoes call. But there's nothing so lonesome, morbid or drear, than to stand in the bar of a pub with no beer. Now the publican's anxious for the quota to come, and there's a faraway look on the face of the bum. The maid's gone all cranky and the cook's acting queer. Oh, what a terrible place is a pub with no beer. Then the stockman rides up with his dry, dusty throat. He breasts up to the bar and pulls a wad from his coat. But the smile on his face quickly turns to a sneer as the barman says sadly, the pub's got no beer. Then the swaggy comes in, smothered in dust and flies. He throws down his roll and rubs the sweat from his eyes. But when he is told, he says, "What's this I hear? I've trudged 50 layman miles to a pub with no beer." Now there's a dog on the veranda, for his master he waits, but the boss is inside, drinking wine with his mates. He hurries for cover and he cringes in fear. It's no place for a dog round a pub with no beer. And old Billy the blacksmith, the first time in his life, why, he's gone home cold sober to his darling wife. He walks in the kitchen, she says, "You're early, Bill dear." But then he breaks down and tells her the pub's got no beer. Oh, it's hard to believe that there's customers still, but the money's still tinkling in the old ancient till. The Wyandottes are happy, and I know they're sincere when they say they don't care if the pub's got no beer. So it's a lonesome away from your kindred and all, by the campfire at night, we'll hear the wild dingoes call. But there's nothing so lonesome, morbid or drear, than to stand in the bar of that pub with no beer. I love to have a beer with Duncan. I love to have a beer with Duncan. We drink in moderation and we never ever ever get rolling drunk. We drink at the town and country where the atmosphere is great. I love to have a beer with Duncan, 'cause Duncan's me mate. Yeah, I love to have a beer with Colin. I love to have a beer with Col. We drink in moderation, and it doesn't really matter if he brings his doll. We drink at the town and country where the atmosphere is great. I love to have a beer with Colin, 'cause Colin's me mate. I love to have a beer with Kevin. Oh, I love to have a beer with Kev. We drink in moderation, and he drives me home in his big old Chevy. We drink at the town and country where the atmosphere is great. I love to have a beer with Kevin, 'cause Kevin's me mate. I love to have a beer with Patrick. I love to have a beer with Pat. We drink in moderation, and it wouldn't really matter if the beer was flat. We drink at the town and country where the atmosphere is great. I love to have a beer with Patrick. Well, I've walked a mile or two in my lifetime, and I've traveled down some muddy tracks and dry. 'Cause if I wanted to get where I was
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please stand?
I knew I'd just have to walk that country mile. Now a country mile would be the longest distance a man could ever travel when he's down. And you curse the never-ending road before you when you think you'll never make it into town. But you meet a friend or two along the highway, and you learn a lot you never knew before. And if the journey takes a lifetime when you thought a year or two, well, you just don't give up easy anymore. And I've walked a mile or two in my lifetime, and I've traveled down some muddy tracks and dry. 'Cause if I wanted to get where I was going, I knew I'd just have to walk that country mile. Walking that long mile has shown me changes in the people and the land. But I'll bet the road to Marble Bar's no better than when I drove with trucks and caravans. And the country bloke is still the same old battler, no matter what the place he's working in. And although I've covered many miles, I still can't wait to see what the next long country mile will bring. Well, I've walked a mile or two in my lifetime, and I've traveled down some muddy tracks and dry. 'Cause if I wanted to get where I was going, I knew I'd just have to walk that country mile. Yes, I knew I'd have to walk that country mile.
Thankful am I that I have lived in this great world and known its many joys. The thrill of mountains and the morning air, hills and the button grass plains, harvest and the strong sweet scent of hay. A rock-strewn river overhung with trees, shafts of sunlight in a valley leading to the sea. A beat of waves on rough and rocky shores, a wild white spray flung high in ecstasy. The song of birds awakening at dawn and flaming sunsets at the close of day, with cooling breezes in the secret night, music at night and moonlight on the sea. The comfort of home and the treasured things, the love of kin and the fellowship of friends, firelight and laughter and children at their play, with all their hopes and dreams, their freshness as the future beckons them. The faithful eyes of dogs, companionship of cats, my garden with its rich reward for toil, and all those things that make my life dear and beautiful. The tapestry of life, both joy and pain, is ours to live but once and not again. When I look back upon my richly varied years, I crave no more. Thankful am I that I have lived, so shed no tears. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jesse. We have come together today from different places and all at different stages on our journey through life. But there is one thing that we all have in common. At one point or another, and to some varying degree, our lives have been touched by Clifford Gordon Hawley, better known to you all as Cliff. And so this afternoon we put aside our usual daily activities for a while to express our love and admiration for him. I'd also like to acknowledge those who can't be with us here physically today and are joining us via live stream. Thank you for sharing this time with us. A funeral takes a team of people who work together in creating a ceremony. And with me today is Lucas, and along with our catering staff, Mandy and Fairley, and as the staff of Parkside Funerals, we are privileged to have been entrusted with the care of Cliff after his death and of conducting his service here at Parkside. At the conclusion of this service, Cliff's family warmly invite you to stay here for a cuppa and a chat as we continue in remembering Cliff's life. Cliff was a dearly loved husband of joy for 65 wonderful years, a loved father and father-in-law of David, Julie, Glenn and Kristen, and Alan and Sally, a cherished pop of Damien, Justin and Jess, Megan, Alyssa and Nicole, Kate and Liam, Connor and Logan, and a great-grandfather of Jonathan, Christopher, Lucas, Thomas, RJ, Otto and Violet, a son of the late Gordon and Gladys Hawley, and a dear brother of Betty, Jean, Mavis, Jack, Max, Leonard, Lillian, Reginald and Margaret, who have all gone before him, making him the last of his generation of Hawleys. Is deeply admired and missed by all of their families. The event of death has a way of uniting us in a way that perhaps no other human experience does. It reminds us of the fragility of our relationships. It reminds us of the special and unique way in which we relate to those people who cross our pathway in life. It may challenge us to think of the legacy we will leave behind and the way that we will be remembered. Those we love are never truly gone. They live in treasured memories. They live in the hearts of those lives they have touched and shared along the way. Your sadness today comes out of caring and out of love. Be thankful that Cliff was and still is part of your life. He lives on in you, his family, and in the hearts and memories of those who had the good fortune to have known him. I never had the privilege of personally knowing Cliff, so rather than me telling you about him in my words, I'm going to leave that to the people who really knew him and the people who really counted in his life. Our eulogy this afternoon has been prepared by Cliff's daughter, Julie, and has asked that I read this on her behalf. Cliff was born at Myalla, now known as Mellabina, on the 31st of March 1933. He was the fifth child of Gordon and Gladys Hawley and their second eldest son. Cliff started school at the age of 6, and although he didn't enjoy it, he managed to hold the attendance record, never missing a single day in his 8.5 years there. He was awarded a certificate and a monetary prize from the Winnie Council. The only exception to this was the day his brother Reginald was buried. Out of respect for their parents, a public holiday was declared, something that would be unlikely in schools today. Dad got into a bit of trouble when he was a kid. One warm afternoon, his mum took him and his brother Max to visit their neighbour, Mrs. Walters. They were probably 8 or 9, old enough to know better. While the mums chatted, the boys climbed a big old apple tree and started tossing apples onto the road, just for fun. By the time they were done, there were squashed apples everywhere. Their mum was horrified and gave them a good telling off all the way home. She was so embarrassed that she never went back to Mrs. Walters' place again. After school, there were plenty of chores waiting. Feeding the pigs, helping with the milking, or just all the usual small farm jobs. After finishing school, Cliff stayed on the family farm, working alongside his 3 brothers. Each boy was given his own potato patch, something they took great pride in. The family milked around 25 cows by hand every day, a real team effort with everyone pitching in, even their mum. The milk was sent off to the butter factory in Wynyard, a routine that became part of their everyday life. Sport wasn't really part of Dad's life. There was always work to be done on the farm, and that didn't stop for weekends. Saturdays and Sundays were just another day to get stuck in alongside his brothers. Dad enjoyed the junior farmer shows that were held each year, something he always looked forward to. In time, Cliff took over the farm from his dad. He gradually built up the dairy herd and cut back on the potatoes, eventually moving into whole milk production and proudly supplying Cadbury's. Julie remembers the big boxes of chocolates, seconds, that we would get every Christmas from Cadbury's. Cliff was 25 when he met the love of his life, Joy. During their courtship, he'd called to speak with her, and his sister Lillian, who worked at the local telephone exchange, would recognise his voice straight away. "Is that you, Cliffy?" she'd say, before putting him through. They enjoyed lots of country dances in their courting days. Joy's brother Max recalled a memory of when Cliff was courting Joy. He would give Max, who was 4 years younger, a shilling to stop him spying on them. One night, Cliff upped the money and gave Max 2 shillings. Max thought, it's got to be on tonight. Cliff and Joy were married on the 27th of February, 1960, and spent their honeymoon in Hobart. On the way home, they slept in their car in Campbelltown. To this day, Joy's not quite sure whether they were just being frugal or if there really was nowhere else to stay. The farm where Cliff grew up was just 300 metres from where he and Joy built their home in Millabina. Life wasn't easy in the early days, and like many families at the time, the house grew as the family did. The original home had just a bedroom, kitchen, bathroom and laundry, all slowly lined and painted as they settled in. As the children came along, so did the need for space. A couple more bedrooms were added, then a lounge room. Each addition a reflection of the growing love and life inside those walls. Dad raised 4 children, while working tirelessly as a dairy farmer, milking around 40 cows each day, morning and night. On top of that, in the lean times, he often helped out on neighbouring farms, working on the spud diggers and picking cauliflowers on Table Cape. He was a hard worker through and through. Alongside the cows, he kept pigs for a time, but eventually his focus turned to his beloved Jersey herd. Cliff was a proud and practical man who valued hard work, perseverance and persistence. He had a practical and unassuming outlook, content with what he had. He never sought excess material wealth. Some thoughts from the children growing up with their dad taught them many practical skills and values. The importance of cleanliness in the dairy, teaching us to maintain meticulous standards, essential for producing quality milk for Cadbury. Wood stacking was a lesson in patience and craftsmanship, taking pride in creating a neat, stable stack was worthwhile, though Julie failed at this task in Dad's final weeks, and he noticed. Dad taught us that tiger snakes don't belong in the chook house. One day, crawling in and pulling one out backwards to protect both the chooks and the eggs. Countless hours were spent picking up rocks from newly cleared ground, which he called the new ground, and using his red Fergie tractor and a carry-all to clear as many as possible in preparing paddocks for grass. Dad had many routines and methods at home, reflecting his practical nature, including a tried and true system of getting rid of flies from the house, teaching us to sequentially turn off the lights, lounge room, then kitchen, then hall, and finally porch, to guide the flies outside. Safety was important, especially his insistence that the open fire be completely out before going to bed by pouring water on it, with not a spark to be seen. Also, the need to turn off all the power points when we left the house. Dad loved his vegetable garden, taking great pride in growing potatoes, peas, carrots, and parsnips, and many other vegetables. Dad taught us how to fish, often taking us and our friends to the local rivers to catch blackfish on summer evenings. Cliff was an avid snooker player. He absolutely loved the game. He played regularly in a local church snooker competition, and every week his team would face off against another. He was so passionate about it that he eventually built himself a dedicated snooker room, complete with his very own table. He was especially proud of his trophy too, which is this one, just here. In his later years, when he was less mobile, he had an iPad and spent many happy hours watching games of snooker. After nearly 40 years of dairy farming, he retired at around 62 and sold the farm to a neighbour, keeping just enough land to manage comfortably. In retirement, the garden became their new focus. Much like the house had grown with the family, the garden gradually expanded too. Over time, it grew to nearly 3 acres, becoming their pride and joy. In many ways, it replaced the farm. Cliff loved working in the garden, but what he especially enjoyed was building rock walls and drains. He built rock borders around the flower beds and low rock walls. He took great pleasure in designing and building those rock walls, raiding all the local farms for more rocks as the garden grew. Each one carefully placed, a true labour of love. The garden became not just a place of beauty, but a labour of love for both Cliff and Joy. Cliff and Joy also joined the local bushwalking club in their retirement, but it didn't start out so enthusiastically. Joy was keen, but Cliff wasn't so sure. In fact, he was very reluctant. Joy gently bribed him, saying, "Let's just try it once, and if you don't like it, we don't have to go back." Well, that one walk changed everything. He met a couple of fellow retired farmers, and before long, they were in deep conversation, probably about weather or fences or cows, and he was hooked. Cliff and Joy remained active members of the club for over 15 years and hiked all over Tasmania together, turning that hesitant yes into years of adventure and friendship. He even received an OBE, Over Bloody 80 award. Their adventures didn't stop in Tasmania. Cliff and Joy also explored many beautiful walks on the mainland, including the Great Ocean Road and Wilson's Promontory, and even ventured across to New Zealand for more incredible hikes. Walking became such a special part of their lives, and Cliff often said that being part of the bushwalking club allowed him to see parts of Tasmania and beyond that he never would have experienced otherwise. It opened up a whole new world of beauty, friendship, and appreciation for the great outdoors. Cliff was a big country music fan, especially when it came to Slim Dusty. He'd often say with a grin, "Slim Dusty will still be going long after those pop stars you kids listen to are gone." Cliff and Joy travelled to Mildura every year for about 10 years to attend the Country Music Festival. It became a much-loved tradition filled with great music, good company, and memories that lasted far beyond the final song. Travel became a big part of Cliff and Joy's retirement. Once they started, they didn't look back, travelling to New Zealand several times. Cliff got caught in a blizzard near Mount Cook and got hypothermia, walked the Milford Track and many others. They visited Asia a number of times, even driving a car in Thailand, travelled through the SARS outbreak, went to Hong Kong, walked along the Great Wall of China and travelled through Canada and the USA. Each trip was another adventure, filled with new sights, stories and memories. For two people who had worked so hard for so many years, it was a well-earned reward, and they made the most of every moment. Excuse me a second. Cliff also loved his footy, especially his beloved Collingwood. He was a passionate supporter and had the chance to attend several games at the MCG and never missed a game on the TV. In his final hour, Glenn assured him Collingwood would win the grand final. He was a well-loved pop to his 10 grandchildren and loved it when they came to visit. Julie recalls her boys used to love visiting Nan and Pop on the farm. They'd head out to help with the milking or lend a hand with whatever was going on that day. For them, it was always an adventure, and the boys would come home smelling like cow poo. Damien and Justin didn't care. There was one memorable day on the farm when Cliff had been having a few run-ins with pesky possums. He finally managed to catch one in a trap, and Damien and Justin, who were only in primary school at the time, were there visiting. Pop sent them inside so he could shoot the possum, but just as he took the shot, a little voice behind him piped up, "What'd you do that for, Pop?" The boys had snuck back out to see what was going on. Needless to say, there were some questions at school the next day, especially after a very enthusiastic show and tell. A few explanations had to be made to the teachers. Cliff was one of the oldest residents in the area, if not the very oldest, and he was proud to have a road named after him. He often joked about being the mayor of Millabina. He was very protective of his shed, a place he shared but guarded closely. Nobody was allowed inside without his say-so. The shed was locked with both a door lock and a padlock, and despite the tools inside being old and mostly unused, he kept it tightly secured. Up until the last few weeks, he was just as determined to keep the shed bolted tight as ever, proof of how much it meant to him, even if its contents held little value to anyone else. Cliff lived a very full and active life. After celebrating his 80th birthday, his health began to decline, and he underwent open heart surgery to have his aortic valve replaced. The valve was made from part of a cow, which he thought was quite fitting, having spent his life milking cows. He would often say that a cow saved his life. After his surgery, Cliff's health was never quite the same, and the hiking and travelling had to stop. But he had stayed active in other ways, tending his garden, growing vegetables, and mowing the lawn. Joy and Cliff celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary in March 2020, and Cliff was very chuffed to receive a letter from the Queen. Cliff loved reading, and as his health declined, it was his main activity, and he would always have a book on the go. Sadly, he lost his ability to read earlier this year, and audiobooks didn't quite work, as he kept falling asleep and losing his place. Cliff always used to sign his name in the back of the library book, so he would be able to tell if he'd read that one before. There would be a lot of books at the Wynyard Library with his name in the back of it. Remarkably, even at 91, he was still stacking wood, and just a month ago, he fired up the ride-on mower to make sure it started and cut a small patch of grass. Earlier this year, Cliff's health began to deteriorate more noticeably as symptoms of motor neurone disease started to take hold. Although he had been diagnosed a couple years earlier, there had been little change until recently. His health declined quite rapidly, and it was getting harder for him to do things. He was rapt to make it to 92, which was a milestone, as none of his siblings had made it that far. He was also very proud of the fact that he had a full head of hair at 92. He was determined to stay home and die on his terms, and he got his wish. And that meant a lot to him, especially being such a proud man. His loss has left a big hole in the family, especially for Joy. 65 years together is a long time to be with somebody, but Joy has so many special memories to hold on to. Remembered always, and a life well lived. Thank you, Julie. Beautifully done. The family have selected a poem to share with us this afternoon, titled Let Me Go by Christina Rossetti. It's the poem in your booklets. And I'd like to invite Julie forward now. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Jesse. This is a poem, it's a reading for Mum on behalf of Mum. Let me go. When I come to the end of the road and the sun has set for me, I should have worn my glasses. I want no rights in a gloom-filled room. Why cry for a soul set free? Miss me a little, but not for long, and not with your heart bowed low. Remember the love that once we shared. Miss me, but let me go. For this is a journey we all must take, and each must go alone. It's all part of the master plan, a step on the road to home. When you are lonely and sick at heart, go to the friends we know, laugh at all the things we used to do. Miss me, but let me go.
Oh, it's a lonesome away from your kindred and all, by the campfire at night, we'll hear the wild dingoes call. But there's nothing so lonesome, morbid or drear, than to stand in the bar of a pub with no beer. Now the publican's anxious for the quota to come, and there's a faraway look on the face of the bum. The mate's gone all cranky, and the cook's acting queer. Oh, what a terrible place is a pub with no beer. Then the stockman rides up with his dry, dusty throat. He breasts up to the bar and pulls a wad from his coat. But the smile on his face quickly turns to a sneer as the barman says sadly, the pub's got no beer. Then the swaggy comes in, smothered in dust and flies. He throws down his roll and rubs the sweat from his eyes. But when he is told, he says, what's this I hear? I've trudged 50 layman miles to a pub with no beer. Now there's a dog on the veranda, for his master he waits, but the boss is inside, drinking wine with his mates. He hurries for cover, and he cringes in fear. It's no place for a dog, round a pub with no beer. And old Billy the blacksmith, the first time in his life, why, he's gone home cold sober to his darling wife. He walks in the kitchen, she says, you're early, Bill dear. But then he breaks down and tells her the pub's got no beer. Oh, it's hard to believe that there's customers still, but the money's still tinkling in the old ancient till. The Wyandottes are happy, and I know they're sincere when they say they don't care if the pub's got no beer. So it's a lonesome away from your kindred and all, by the campfire at night, we'll hear the wild dingoes call. But there's nothing so lonesome, morbid or drear, than to stand in the bar of that pub with no beer. Oh yeah, it's a long straight road and the engine is deep. I can't help thinking of a good night's sleep, and the long, long roads of my life are a-calling me. These rough old hands are glued to the wheel, my eyes full of sand from the way they feel, and the lights coming over the hill are a-blinding me. It's a long, tough haul from away down south. A man's gotta find a little bread for his mouth, and a home for a girl as sweet as my honey can be. So it's down through the gears, she's a-starting to pull. The gauge on the tank is a-showing near full, and the lights coming over the hill are a-blinding me. There's rain on the road, I can feel the load start a-shifting in a dance. Too late to see the post, and I haven't got a ghost of a chance. Oh no, the windscreen wipers are a-beating in time. The song they sing is a part of my mind, and I can't believe it's really happening to me. Oh, but I'm over the edge and down the mountainside. I know they'll tell about the night I died in the rain, when the lights on the hill were a-blinding me. Hey! I can feel the load start a-shifting in a dance. Too late to see the post, and I haven't got a ghost of a chance. Oh no, the windscreen wipers are a-beating in time. The song they sing is a part of my mind, and I can't believe it's really happening to me. Oh, but I'm over the edge and down the mountainside. I know they'll tell about the night I died in the rain, when the lights on the hill were a-blinding me. In the rain, when the lights on the hill were a-blinding me.
The way that we respond to the prospect of death is an expression of our own being, and the way that Jim left our world on Thursday the 19th of June was characteristic of the kind of person that he was. He faced finality with determination, without fear, and made it a fitting end on his terms to a long, full and fruitful life. In the short time that we have here today, we can barely begin to scratch the surface, but I hope that when you do leave here this afternoon, that you will do so with a real sense of having shared in something special for a very special and unique gentleman. In acknowledgement of his upbringing and traditional values, could I ask that those that know it to please join me in saying the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you. The death of someone we love so dearly, someone we have shared the best part of our lives with, can sometimes feel like too much to bear. The pain of grief and the sense of loss is immense and often overwhelming. At this time, our thoughts are with Cliff's family, especially Joy, who have unselfishly devoted themselves to supporting him through all his illness, and also in turn their dear friends who have supported them. I thank you, and Cliff's family thanks you, for coming here today to celebrate his life. When a good person dies, family and friends gather for many reasons. In our loss, we seek one another's company for our own comfort, just to be together, to look in a friend's face and see the common expression of hurt takes away some of our loneliness and our feelings and draws hearts together in the blessed healing that family and friends can do for one another. Lastly, I want to thank you, Cliff. Thank you for the good times and for your hard work, your love and laughter. Thank you for being you. You have filled your niche and accomplished your tasks. You leave this world a richer place than you found it. With great respect, we bid you a final farewell. Continue your journey, Cliff, with the love of everybody here. Be united with family and friends that have gone before you. You will live on in the hearts of everyone you touched and nurtured while you lived here on this earth. And holding the thoughts of Cliff in your hearts means to you, know that death ends a life, not a relationship. Hold on to Cliff in your thoughts. There is no need to part from him too hastily. Talk about him often. Repeat the words and sayings he used, and enjoy your memories of him, just as we have here today. So tenderly, lovingly, and reverently, we commit the body of Clifford Gordon Hawley to its natural end. We give thanks for your life, Cliff, and for your 92 years of love, friendship, and your memories. We now say farewell, and may you rest in peace. And finally, originally an Irish blessing, but more importantly for Cliff, the words of Slim Dusty. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and the rains fall soft upon your tracks. And until we meet again, may God hold you safely in the palm of his hand. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That brings our service this morning to a close. Could I invite you to please stand for one of Cliff's favourite anthems?
Good old Collingwood forever. They know how to play the game. Side by side they stick together to uphold the Magpie's name. See the barrackers are shouting as all barrackers should. Oh, the premiership's a cakewalk for the good old Collingwood. make us sure. Oh, the premiership's a cake.